Hello and welcome to the Mindful Living YouTube channel. So glad that we found each other. I don't know if you can tell, but I am super excited for this video because this is a topic that is near and dear to my heart. But first, let's pause and take a really long, deep breath together as we settle into our space and open our hearts and our minds to receive. Deep in, deep out. Okay, today we're talking about tea. I am a firm believer that everyone should drink tea every single day. In the same way that people drink coffee 2 to 3 times a day, I myself love coffee, but I think that we should start supplementing our coffee intake with an herbal tea or a tea, which we'll get into, especially for us women who shift hormonally throughout the month. Tea is a beautiful way to support those shifts that we go through throughout the month. They provide really gentle yet powerful supports, and the practice and really the art of herbalism, of drinking tea, has been around for so long. There is so much that we can learn from plants, which are really our allies. In the same way that we cultivate and build relationship with one another, with our families, our friends, plants are no different. We can cultivate this deep, meaningful, intentional relationship with the plants, even without consuming them, even with just being in their presence. But today we're going to talk about tea, true tea, and tisanes, or herbal teas. Where to start? True tea. So, true tea, it took me a really long time to wrap my mind around this, but true tea is from the Camellia sinensis plant, which is an evergreen shrub. And true tea can actually grow in the form of a shrub, or it can grow into a tree, an evergreen tree. And there's this really interesting book on tea. There's a couple really interesting books on tea, True Tea of China and the tea. So I'm going to find those and put a picture here so you can see them. One of them is a little bit more of a historic background on tea, but there's teas from different regions, of course. Tea from the Camellia sinensis plant. So to be clear, white, green, black, oolong, and pu-erh tea all come from the same plant. What changes is the methods of processing that they go through. There's actually so many different tea growing regions throughout the world, but the main ones are China, Japan, and India. And so there is an old myth about tea that comes from China. I won't go into the whole thing, but essentially, sage, a man, was sitting underneath a tree, and by casualidad, by coincidence, the leaf blew into his water and it made tea, and that was the first pot of tea that was ever made. There's a whole history of how tea made its way from China to India. India's Darjeeling tea again. So one of the books that I'll link is tells that story. Okay, so I just want to recap. True tea is from the Camellia sinensis plant, and true tea produces white, green, black, oolong, and pu-erh. The beautiful thing about this is that each tea from the Camellia sinensis plant has its own medicine, has its own benefits, its own properties, its own smells, tastes, its own characteristic, its own personality. White tea, briefly, white tea is our young tea leaves, minimally processed, usually just sun dried, so there's little to no heat involved other than from the sun, and so it's rich in antioxidants. These antioxidants are kept intact. When they're heated more, they tend to break down. It also has, white tea tends to have the least amount of caffeine, so best to drink later in the day if you're going to have a cup of tea. Now, our green tea is best for detoxification, for cleansing the liver. It's best if you have a night out where you're drinking, smoking, eating fast food. Like, green tea is your support system for all of these things, which many people do, and that's okay. That's a part of our lifestyles. But we can find balance and we can find support so that we can enjoy these things that sometimes bring us out of balance. Then we have black tea. Black tea is a great palate cleanser. So if you have a rich dessert or a rich sweet treat, black tea pairs really well with our rich desserts. And what else do I have to say about that? Black tea also has the most caffeine, so beware of that. Wouldn't drink it too late in the day. It also has, I don't know if it's pure probiotics, but it has one or the other. It has some sort of biotics that's good for your gut. Then we have oolong tea. Oolong is best for your focus, your study time, your um, consistent energy. So, say you have to sit down and study or do a lot of computer work or anything of the sort, oolong tea is your friend. Oolong tea is easy on the stomach, so drinking cup after cup of green tea may unsettle the stomach, especially if you haven't eaten anything, whereas oolong is a little bit gentler on the stomach. And then we go to pu-erh, and pu-erh, just think of pu-erh like a fine wine or a whiskey that's aged for however long, can be aged for years. Pu-erh is full of probiotics because it's had time. Whenever something has aged, it's rich in bacteria and other little organisms that are actually really beneficial for us. So pu-erh is like your probiotics. It's tasty, it's rich. So those are our 5 types of true tea that come from the Camellia sinensis plant. There's so much information about these plants, but I feel like that's a good start and a good introduction. So I just wanted to show you guys, I have some tea here. This is our green tea jasmine pearl. Jasmine tea is probably one of my favorite teas. So tea also, I should mention this, tea from Camellia sinensis, our true tea, should never be boiled. Each one of them has white, green, black, etc. Each one of them has their optimum temperature, and you almost never boil. No, you don't boil the water, and you almost never leave it for longer than 10 to 20 to 30 seconds to even a minute. But rarely do you leave it longer than that. And you'll notice that when you do, your tea tends to get bitter. So if you ever tried tea and it's bitter, it's because it was steeped either too long or too hot. So those are 2 things to be mindful of when you're making tea. And then I also have this Taiwan oolong winter tea. And so, yeah, brewing time is 45 seconds to 1 minute, and the infusion is 4 to 5 cups. So what that means is that with green tea, you can steep it 3 to 5 to 7 times, even sometimes, until it's colorless. And each brew will provide you with a different experience, because when the tea leaves, especially when they're rolled like this, when they open up, they release different smells, different richness of the tea, different taste in general. So never steep your tea once unless you're using tea bags, but I highly, highly recommend finding a good quality organic tea company and spending all your money on them, supporting them completely, because tea bags tend to be the things that they sweep up off the ground when they have used the rest of it for loose leaf tea. Okay, now that was a lot That's okay if you don't retain all of that information. Moving into our tisanes or our herbal teas. Tisane is synonymous with herbal tea, and if you ever see that word tisane, it's essentially distinguishing itself from true tea that comes from Camellia sinensis. Herbal teas or tisanes are essentially any flower, leaf, or root that comes from really any plant that you can steep as medicine or make an herbal tea out of. I have a couple here. So we have chamomile, hibiscus, calendula flowers. We have this reishi mushroom slices, which I've actually never used and I'm a little intimidated to use. But so all of these are our herbal teas. And herbal teas, I really won't go into the benefits of them because each one provides support in its own way. But herbal teas have different energetics and different actions on the body. So some are good for breaking a fever, some are good for cleansing the liver and the skin, some are good for ridding yourself of excess heat in the body, some are more mental, some are more physical. And so looking into these properties of each individual tea is super educational. However, I personally recommend that if a tea calls to you or if somebody recommends a tea to you, that you brew a cup or a mason jar and just sit in the presence of the tea. I wouldn't even look up the benefits of it first. I would sit with the tea, take a few deep breaths with it, and consume it and see what type of feeling, emotion, visualization you get from that tea before you even look anything up. Because as my teachers have explained to me, it's more this sense of allowing the plant to introduce itself to you rather than you coming to it with a preconceived notion about what that tea can do for you, right? Because it's an entity in and of itself. And so what you'll find is that even though the internet or books will give you all of these different things, and those are great resources and definitely utilize them, but what you'll notice is that teas often have their, I mean, they have their own medicine, they have their own things to communicate to you, their own messages, their own wisdom to communicate to you. There's something powerful about just showing up and letting the tea introduce itself to you before you come and tell it who it is, which I drink herbal teas practically every day. And what I'll do in the morning is I'll take a mason jar, one of the 3 pint ones, not this big, but I'll take a jar, I'll put my herbs in it, cover it, and these you can use boiling water, and I'll steep it from anywhere to 10 to 20 minutes to even a few hours because water is there's a word for it in chemistry, like the universal solvent. I think that's what it is, the universal solvent. And so water can extract the most amount of properties from the tea, from the herbal tea. So it's honestly the best way. I mean, you can get into using alcohol for tinctures and oils, and there's so many different things that you could do with herbs. But I would start just by taking a mason jar, putting 1 tablespoon of herbs per cup of water, and letting it steep for 10 to 20 minutes, and then sipping on it throughout the day. And that is an easy way to get hydrated, to get nutrients, to get minerals, and to start to build relationship with the plants. Now, for my women, the really beautiful thing about tea is that it is something you can share with your loved ones, share with your family, your friends, your kids. It's a bonding experience, it's grounding. It's really just a beautiful practice to incorporate into your day-to-day life. That's all I think I have to say about tea. This is a little bit longer than I thought it would be, but if you made it to the end, thank you for sticking around. Last thing I'll mention is that if you're looking for an herbal supplier, Mountain Rose Herbs is a wonderful, organic, high quality herbal supplier in the United States. They get their herbs from all over the world, but they do a really good job of giving the history of the herb, medicinal properties and benefits, as well as the sustainability rating, which is really important. And a lot of herbs are over harvested, and so it's really important to make sure that we're getting them from sustainably harvested suppliers and buying from people who do their best to take into account not just profit, but also people and planet. I really welcome any questions, comments about your own herbal or tea drinking journey, and I look forward to the next video. Sending you love wherever you are in the world, wishing you good health and high spirits.